Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Stat Me Up for Anfield Index. Another week, another Reds victory, ladies and gents. What follows Bournemouth? Well, an absolute thrashing of West Ham in the Carabao Cup as the Reds knocked 5 past the Hammers. Bit of deja vu, it feels like last season, doesn't it, in that regard? There's Wolves upcoming, there's Bologna upcoming as well at the same time. So there is plenty to talk about stats-wise. And here to join me as ever is the man, the renowned, the respected, the Hungarian hipster himself, Ben Boksak. Ben, how are we after last night?
Can't complain. I can't complain. I mean, I feel like that's how everyone is feeling about it. I'm pretty sure most of the Liverpool fan base didn't really care too much about this game. I mean, I love it when Liverpool are playing, but I'd rather they play in the Premier League and the Champions League. But overall, it was an enjoyable night. I think Liverpool played some good football, particularly towards the end of the game. Disappointing start, slow start, but that's to be expected, I think, when you do a lot of rotation. But then the whole team just grew into it. Even Jarrell Kwanzaa, I got to point him out. I think, he made that mistake, which I will counter. I don't think it was his error. I think it was Endo smashing it into his leg. Like, what is Kwanzaa supposed to do there? But that's besides the point. It doesn't besmirch the result or anything. And both Endo and Kwanzaa recovered really well from that mistake and had really good games. Kwanzaa in particular, his passing range, his forward passing, his ability on the ball was really highlighted in this game, and I was really impressed by him. Endo as well, but I think we'll discuss a little bit later. But yeah, overall, I think a really dominant Liverpool performance in the end.
Yeah, 5-1. The red card probably helped, but we'll take any 5-1 victory. I mean, when we talk about players and stats, Ben, the forwards grab the headlines for obvious reasons, don't they? People with doubles, goals galore, everyone getting on the act. So let's start from the top. Officially, Cody Gakpo was the sponsors man of the match, I noticed. 2 late goals at the same time as well. It felt like a really good overall performance. What did the stats say for Gakpo in this one?
It's a bit of a mixed bag. He created 3 chances, which is quite high. Wasn't quite the most chances created in the game, but it was the joint most chances created from Liverpool. Obviously got the 2 goals. The XG for those 2 goals combined was only 0.65, which is surprising. But I suppose they were difficult finishes. One did get deflected as well, quite fortunately. He also recorded 0.21 assists, expected assists. So maybe his teammates could have, helped him out in that area. 94% pass accuracy, which is quite high. 30 accurate passes out of 32. Apart from that, I think he also completed 2 out of 2 dribbles. So, you can't really fault that performance. Although I think on the eye test, before the 2 goals, there were a couple of situations where me watching as a fan, but not necessarily looking at the stats, I was like, you could have done better there. You could have made the better choice. But then, he left his best moments until the end. And, they were real highlight, I think, the 2 goals, particularly the first one rather than the second one, which got a bit deflected.
Yeah, that first one was a quality finish. It's textbook Gakpo, wasn't it? Coming inside and rifling into the bottom corner, that power shot almost with his right foot. And he has a certain style of goal. So does Diogo Jota, Ben, in a strange way. I mean, there's nothing more Diogo Jota than a scaffy header from a sort of break, just a break in the box, the right man on the spot. That's typical Diogo Jota. But also that second goal where, it's brilliant play from Curtis Jones, but he opens his body up with the right foot and curls it past Areola, who just touched it into the bottom corner. So very, in different ways, typical Jota goals. What did the stats say for Diogo in this one? Because he only played about an hour as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think only Chiesa had fewer touches than him in the Liverpool team who started. Anyway, so he wasn't very involved. But like you said, typical Diogo, 2 shots, 2 goals. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. It doesn't matter if he has 27 touches, which is what he had last night, or 90 touches in those minutes. It's the goals that count. And yeah, it was great to see, I think, him being back in that form, because I was looking at the numbers before. Obviously, he hasn't scored since the opening day against Ipswich, and he's had 10 shots in between and no goals. So 2 out of 2. He's back to doing what he does best. And I think it was quite uncharacteristic, this run of form from him, because he's known as the most reliable finisher in the team. And what the XG and the underlying stats were showing is like he was still getting in those areas. So the reason he wasn't scoring, it wasn't because his teammates weren't finding him or getting in the areas. He wasn't finding the space inside the box. He was getting chances, just not putting them away, which is not what Jota is about. But it looks like that sort of bad run of form it's gone, hopefully. I mean, I don't want to jinx it, so I'm going to touch wood here. But hopefully for Liverpool, it's out of his system now, and he can really go on a good run and gain some momentum.
Fingers crossed. We said before on this, he can be a streaky player, almost, Jota, can't he? So if he's on the hot streak, he stays in there. And you probably fancy he only played around an hour in this one. Nunes played the full 90. So you'll expect he will start against Wolves, but we'll come to Wolves shortly. I mean, you mentioned him as well, this part in the goal. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt, because we loved his nutmeg, Federico Chiesa. That was brilliant on the touchline, wasn't it? There was a bit of skill. So we'll pretend it was almost a scissor volley for his first assist, his first start. Wasn't on too long, similar to Jota, about an hour. What did the stats say for Chiesa on his first start in this one?
Yes, I mentioned it. He wasn't necessarily involved an awful amount in the game. I think that's to be expected from an attacking player coming into the side. I remember when Takumi Minamino came in, for example, and Jurgen Klopp was always saying he wasn't getting enough passes from his teammates. I think he's still sort of adjusting to the system and everything. I think Arne Slot alluded to that in the aftermath of this game. But the touches he did have were, I think, very promising, very lively. Even with those limited touches, he created the most chances for Liverpool while he was on the pitch, which was free. He was the most fouled player. So everything, like every time he got the ball, things seemed to happen, or, he was creating things. He looked very lively, even on the sort of eye test. He was full of energy, always running at players. And I think that's been indicative of his sort of start to life as a Liverpool player. I mean, he's only played 78 minutes, but he's been involved in 9 duels, made, I think, hit 6 recoveries in those 78 minutes, and 4 shots as well. So that is a lot of involvement in a short space of time. And you know what? I think people criticize me for calling it a brilliant assist, but I think it was heading on target, and it was a really acrobatic shot to pull off. So I will say it was a brilliant assist, because I don't think, there was no other way to get the ball to Jota, regardless of whether he meant it or not, regardless of whether it was a shot. It was a fantastic bit of skill in the game, and it just shows you how confident he is as well, because I think that's one of the things I had the sort of question mark about him when he came into this Liverpool team. Obviously, he's just been told at Juventus that he's not part of the plans. He had an okay season, but nothing extraordinary, a disappointing Euros campaign with Italy. So I was thinking, what kind of frame of mind is he going to come back in? And it seems like he's full of confidence, which is really exciting. And I think it was brief. We only saw glimmers really in this game, but what we did see was very positive.
No doubts at all. And Darwin Núñez also got an assist as well. We should mention that. We've got to talk about the main man. I'm going to be honest. I didn't like the fact he was on the pitch. And like most people, I held my breath when Edison Alvarez absolutely rattled him late on, thinking this is going to be a disastrous night, but it seems to be okay. Mo Salah, Ben, this is, I don't know if the stats are going to back me up or just completely disintegrate this one, but it always seems in the cup competitions, early doors at least, Mo Salah comes on and scores. That seems to be the formula. Is there any data or stats that back that up at all?
No, to be honest, when you sent me the agenda for this podcast, I was kind of scratching my head. I didn't know if you meant the domestic cups because he's only got 3 goals in the League Cup in 9 games, and 6 in 14 in the FA Cup.
Wow.
It's the Champions League that he's really prolific in, and maybe that's where you're coming from.
Yeah, maybe.
He scored a lot of goals in the Champions League, even early doors when he's not necessarily starting. He obviously had that hat trick against Rangers, was it, a couple of seasons ago when he came off the bench? So maybe that's where you're coming from. But domestic cups, not so much. I mean, yeah, like I said, only his 3rd goal for Liverpool in 9 matches in the League Cup. So not necessarily as prolific. But then again, that is because he's not starting those games. He's coming on and has limited amount of minutes.
Wow. We won it twice in recent years as well. Mo Salah only getting 3. Maybe it is Europe, like you say. We also think back to last season when in the Europa League. I know he came on in the group stage a couple of times and netted, so maybe it is Europe we're thinking of, but nothing in the Carabao particularly for Salah historically, but he still gets his goal and he looked delighted the other night. Now, the only other player, and you may have other stats you want to call out, but I know you love a bit of Endo propaganda, Ben. So he did get his first start of the season, and let's be honest, if he wasn't going to start in this one, Ben, we were all thinking, when is Slot going to give him any chance whatsoever? But he did get a stat. Endo or any other stats worth calling out at all?
Yeah, definitely Endo. I mean, he's won the most duels in this match, made the most recoveries, also completed 95% of his passes, so only misplaced 2 passes from 44 attempts. I know on the eye test, it seemed like sometimes he was playing it maybe a bit too safe. He's definitely never going to be an Alexis McAllister type of midfielder who's averaging 8-10 progressive or forward passes per game, similar to Gravenberch, who's sort of around those numbers this season. He's never going to be that type of player. But when it comes to the defensive side of the game, he definitely does offer a lot of solidity. And I think we saw that in his, the amount of duels he's won, the amount of duels he's involved in. And we know that's a big buzzword for Arne Slot at the moment. So maybe that might have sort of swung him in his favour. And a lot of recoveries as well, which is, again, very important to the way Slot likes his Liverpool team to play. So I think he definitely made a statement on the pitch. And that's the great thing about him. You know, he's making a statement on the pitch and not off of it, which is great. He's a real professional, true professional. I think that's what, James Milner or all of these sort of fringe players in Jurgen Klopp's squad who would just come in and do their thing and play their football and be happy with the role that they're given. And I think that kind of player is undervalued in football. So to have Endo in the squad is a huge boost, and to have kept him in the summer is, I think, going to be really important for Liverpool heading into what is going to be a long, long season ahead.
Yeah, you wouldn't put any money against him starting against Brighton. Brighton away is the next round in case anyone missed that. So that comes in there. It's a crazy busy week because we play them in the league and Bayer Leverkusen visit Anfield. So yeah, there'll be full rotation. And maybe the best news of last night, ladies and gents, Trent, Van Dijk, Konate. Unfortunately, McAllister got minutes, should be mentioned before, but Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, Diaz didn't play a single minute. So plenty of rotation and plenty of rest. Ahead of Wolves away. Now, I look at this on paper and I think we know Wolves are struggling at the moment, aren't they? They've had a bad start to the season. They're shipping a lot of goals. People think, hold on, they shipped 6 to Chelsea, I think, didn't they, at home as well? It's not been the best to start for Gary O'Neill. They lost again this weekend, which usually sounds like an ultimate banana skin, though, in Liverpool's history and things that work like that. But What's our record like at Molyneux? How does that stand up stats-wise?
So I looked at the last 6 matches. We won 5 of those. Really encouraging. I think that recent record anyway. And I think it's only really worth looking at the recent record rather than either going back to the 1980s or things like that. Although last year in February, we played them in the 2022-23 season, and we did suffer a big defeat, a 3-0 defeat, which was our worst defeat to Wolverhampton since the 1980s, which I just said I'm not going to bring up. But that was a bad game and a forgettable game, I think, for Liverpool in what was a sort of disappointing season, really. But overall, using that as a sort of anomaly and taking that out of the equation, the other 5 games were positive, good results. Sometimes I think we're going to get onto this, but we did leave it a little bit late.
Yeah.
Games. And I think, it's a ground that in recent history, Liverpool have had a lot of success in.
Yeah, it's funny that because you mentioned it, and I was thinking that when someone tells me Wolves away, I think probably do okay there. We always seem to leave it late, though. There's always a goal late we need, or that's what's going through my mind. Did the stats back this one up this time?
Yeah, I mean, it was exactly the case last season as well. We 1-0 down at half time and came back in the second half. I think it was a sort of like 85th minute or 86th minute win, like second goal for Liverpool. Jota scored in the 55th minute to equalise, and then there was a sort of like 91st minute goal to round things up. But yeah, I looked at the last 6 matches again, and there's been 4 goals scored by Liverpool in the last 10 minutes in those last 6 matches. So yeah, there's been a fair few recently. I think there was an Origi winner, obviously, in the 90th minute. That's just what Origi does. There's been a few sort of games where it's been really exciting right until the end for Liverpool, and obviously Liverpool coming out on top in those games as well, which is important.
Yeah, even thinking about it now, Robbo got one late, didn't he? And Harvey Elliott got that to third. Like you said, Divock Origi, that was surely the last minute of the game. And then even that title win in 1920 season, they outplayed us for a large part before Bobby rattled one in late. Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed, ladies and gents. We don't need one that late, but there's always hope at Molyneux until the death for us. And we'll see what happens on Saturday night. And then, Ben, we are going 3 games in a week again because it doesn't stop. Bologna, that's our next Champions League one. Second Champions League game. I mean, I'm 1 for 1 because I was wrong on both Salah's cut goals, but I was spot on Wolves late. I can't remember. Someone's going to tell me something, but I genuinely couldn't remember at the start of this ever playing Bologna ever. But you're probably going to tell me a big history now.
No, not a big history, but I am disappointed in you for not remembering the 2021 pre-season friendly against Bologna in a Jurgen Cup. I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was either a camp in France, Germany, or Austria, whichever camp we were in at the time. But yeah, Liverpool won 2-0 in that game. Sadio Mane scored one, and Diego Jota scored one, which is, he's still at the club. I think the really interesting fact from that game, because I watched a little bit back, was the fact that Liverpool wore their home red shirt that season in this game, but their away shorts and socks were black away shorts for the season, and the white socks, or I think it was kind of like a beige color, because that was the collar beige away kit Liverpool had. So yeah, it was a really sort of strange looking kit. I think it was because Bologna had like a full-on white kit, so they had to come up with a solution. But yeah, it was quite interesting.
Every time we try and go through this series, without mentioning the disastrous 2021 season, we even bring up pre-season against
No,
Bologna.
this was 21-22. To be fair,
No, that's
we'd
all
gone
right.
past. We'd gone past it. It was the beginning of the new season, and obviously we went on to a really good campaign then. But also, just in terms of the Liverpool squad, there is one player who has a lot of experience against Bologna, obviously, in Federico Chiesa. And I've written an article about his record against AC Milan, which was really good at the San Siro. In that article for Anfield Index, I briefly mentioned his stats against Bologna because in his career, Chiesa has only got one hat-trick in the Serie A. That was against Bologna. The most goals he scored in his entire career have come against Bologna. It's kind of like a Suarez Norwich situation to me. So he's played 11 games and has 7 goals against Bologna so far. And obviously, Milan came a little bit too soon for him at the San Siro. It was never going to be doing anything in the sort of 1 minute of action or 2 or 3, however long it was against Milan. But this Bologna game could be the time for him to again get some serious minutes under his belt against a team who historically he's done really well against. And he could be Liverpool's secret weapon.
Wow, we'll see. Could be a reward like Cody Gakpo, who's probably 2 goals will be rewarded with a role on the bench just because Luis Diaz is Luis Diaz. And it could be that even his performance is rewarded with being Mo Salah's understudy again. But we'll see. With that record against Bologna, it's possible. Now, Bologna follow, or it's our second game. It's an all-Italian start, as we know, isn't it? It's a victory in San Siro against AC Milan. We're now going to bring Bologna to Anfield. How do we normally get on in our second Champions League games? Because we're now into the full realms, Ben. It's not our first week. It's another week of 3 games a week. It's just the crazy schedule is now fully right upon us. There's no 2 ways about it. Tell me we normally do quite well in our second Champions League game.
Yeah, that's definitely been the recent trend. So the last 4 games, the trend has been 4 victories in the last 4 second Champions League games.
Nice.
That was sort of broken by Napoli in 2018-19. So our 5th last season in the Champions League. They beat us, but I think Napoli just seemed to be a thorn in our side because when we're talking about Champions League record, they always seem to be the anomaly. And then in Klopp's first season in the Champions League in 17-18, it was a draw against Spartak Moscow. But yeah, the recent trend, if we're going back to sort of 2022, 23, 21, 22, 2021, 19, 20, all victories and relatively comfortable victories, although there's been a sort of couple of cracking games in there as well. I think there was one against Ajax, another one against Salzburg, which was a 4-3 crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. The theme there is like, if I'm just thinking back to it, I mean, Gravenberch for Ajax, Soboslai for Salzburg, Minamino for Salzburg. A lot of those players tend to end up moving to Liverpool in the end. So maybe we should keep an eye on some of Bologna's talent because you just never know. It seems to be the trend. If you play Liverpool in the Champions League in their second game, you could just move to Liverpool.
Yeah, will be interesting to see. Can't think of any Bologna players off the top of my head who we could be scouting, but you never know, and we will get a chance to see them shortly. I mean, Ben, the final thing I want to finish on, and it's almost not stats related, but I think it's the topic the question maybe everyone's being asked. 7 games in now to this Arne Slot reign, 6 victories. Yes, there is the Forest blip, but overall, he's been pretty impressive, and a lot of people are referencing this as well. Has Slot exceeded your expectations so far? I know it's a small sample size. It's important to say that so we can't get too carried away. But from what you've seen in terms of the goals we're scoring, the lack of goals we're conceding, I know last night's a bit different because you changed your whole entire back four, so that's different. Has it been impressive for you, what you've seen?
Definitely. I think he's had the best start since Bob Paisley in terms of Liverpool managers. So it's a big name, big expectations to live up to this on this early start. I definitely don't think the football is perfect yet, but it shouldn't be because he's so early on and he had such a short amount of time with Liverpool's key players in pre-season. Um, so given that context, I think I have been surprised by how well Liverpool have started. I think we've been fortunate with the draw. It hasn't been too difficult, but then I mean, we went to the San Siro and Old Trafford, so that's not easy traditionally. But I do think both of those teams, Liverpool met at the right times. United are just not great. They haven't been in a while. Liverpool have a good record at Old Trafford nowadays. Old Trafford is no longer the sort of cauldron that we think it is. And the San Siro, there's quite a lot of discontent there as well at AC Milan in terms of some of the transfer activity by the club, some of the ticket prices, which is why the atmosphere wasn't great. I think at the San Siro there was a lot of opportunistic people. I know I'm from Hungary, so a lot of Hungarians went to the game because they realized that the tickets were not selling for Milan. And I think, because of that, we had a sort of strange atmosphere in terms of what it would normally be like at the San Siro in a big Champions League game like this. But yeah, I think, at the end of the day, you can only beat what's in front of you. And Liverpool and on the slot have done that quite comfortably in some of the games. Obviously, big anomaly being that Forest game, but I'm willing to excuse that because of the international break and because of what happened. I think as well, I'm interested to see what happens now in October. Did Slot learn from that experience of, putting out players who played a lot of minutes in international football for the first game, or is he going to rotate a little bit and is he going to bring in players who he's worked more with on the training ground? Because I think the reason why it's so hard to judge him so far is because it's so early on. I like what he has done so far, but there's still a lot of challenges and a lot of question marks ahead, including that rotation question, because that's going to come up a lot in the seasons ahead if he's going to be here long term. Liverpool have a lot of players who are key players for their international teams. That's not going to change, even though as Liverpool fans, we'd probably like them to retire from international football. Except for as a Hungarian, I think that would be a tragedy for the Hungarian national football team. But it's something that Slot has to address and has to deal with. And I'm interested to see how he sort of looks to tackle that when Liverpool return from the October international break, because I definitely don't want that to be a trend as well. So early doors, early days, but overall I think I'm very satisfied. It's been fun to watch, great football, pretty much just a continuation of Jurgen Klopp's tactics and style with some slight differences, but I'm not seeing anything extreme or completely different. I think it's largely similar, and I think that's what Liverpool needed. They needed continuity, and they've got it.
Yeah, we'll be interested to see, and we'll see if it continues when they play bottom side. Wolves are in 20th, aren't they? So, yeah, we talk about fixtures. Some people would have picked that, but it is Liverpool. We will see what happens on Saturday evening. So all it leaves me to say as ever is, Ben, for the stats, the insight and the time, much appreciated, pal.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. And I don't want to jinx anything, but I hope we can talk about a couple of more victories next week.
Fingers crossed, eh? Ladies and gents, that was another Stat Meet Up by Anfield Index.